So I've really been enjoying our Raw series. We did an amazing Raw series with Summer Deaver, and today I invite you to step in to our podcast episode with one of my favorite movement mentors, Dan Althoff. You guys are in for an amazing experience today. Dan and I can rap about just about anything. But today he titled the episode, which I thought was so apropos, Let's Get Metaphysical, because we are going to be talking about movement, the body, play, and most importantly, like getting outside of that ego mind and really what it takes, as well as some of the experiences that we've both had on being stuck in the ego. Dan has been a big help of mine throughout the years on getting outside of my head and getting back into my body. So sit back and enjoy. I really hope that you enjoy this episode, and I would highly, highly, highly encourage you to throw on earbuds in case we've got some choice language, as well as go check it out on YouTube, because Dan and I are sitting together for this conversation, and in his studio space, and it just makes it that much more real. It makes you feel like you're there. So sit back, enjoy this episode. So I'm going to start things off in a very formal way so I could read for you guys Dan's bio. And as you guys, this is Dan. So Dan is a person that I wanted to interview for a podcast before I ever had a podcast. I didn't mention that to you. But the first time that I met Dan, about 5 minutes before I met Dan, I was standing in a hallway, and this older woman was standing next to me, and we were ready to work out. She was wearing flip-flops, and that didn't track for me. And I had sneakers on, and I said, well, do you have shoes with you? And she said, no, you don't need shoes for this class. This was the first, other than yoga, that I was like, I don't need shoes for this class. What kind of class is this? And she said to me, it's like a kitten on acid. And I was like, I don't know what I'm about to walk into. And then in walks Dan, and as he's talking, I was like, I don't know who this person is, but I'd love to crawl inside his brain and interview him for a podcast that I didn't even have at the time. So dreams do come true.
Inspiration. Look at that.
That's your formal bio right there.
Yeah. I think that's good. Kittens on acid. That kind of tracks, as a domesticated animal set loose,
Well, yeah, not quite domesticated.
The kitten, yeah. Well, yeah. The attempt at domestication.
They've attempted to domesticate you.
Yeah. Just like a cat, like if you have a cat, you got to understand, especially like an outdoor cat, or pretty much strictly an outdoor cat. But if you have an outdoor cat, you have to understand that you have a cold-blooded killer, like strolling through your thing at any point.
Right. You're a bit of an outdoor cat.
Yeah. Well, I've lost a couple of my bird friends over the years, but they know the risk of being in the yard. So.
Oh my goodness. All right. So formally, Dan is a movement mentor. And the way in which he moves his body is unbelievable. The way that he inspires people to move their body, and at least in my opinion, wakes them up to the potential that resides within the body through play. He has over 15 years of teaching, over 25 years of study and practice in a variety of physical and somatic disciplines. And it was interesting when I was reading Dan's bio, I was like, this so on point, that you've collected a mosaic of experience and physical culture. That's true. But from what, like, when we say a mosaic of experience, are we talking about the typical, like, this is a yoga instructor and they've done their 200 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what would you say this mosaic is made of that has inspired you in the physical capacity?
Well, if we're talking, like in the as art, then the artist is key to the mosaic thing, and I think that's important to point out off of the bat. What makes it is authenticity. There is no discipline that's complete without your own authenticity.
Right.
So it's like, and I've always had trouble with the folks that just regurgitate and don't, it's like, bread and fried pizza, and this is a prescribed thing, and it never does sit well. It's like, how much have you questioned it?
Right.
But that's how you come up with a real authentic expression of yourself physically. So for me, and I'll keep it brief, but as I was a high energy child, so when they could drag me out of the woods, it was into sports, as that's all my parents knew to do with all of that energy. And then the sports led to the weight room, and the weight room led to the martial arts, very gang, machismo part of the life. And then the hard style martial arts, I was always chasing around an injury. I was always hurt. And then that led to like the soft styles and the yoga, and then the yoga thing. It's like, like it rang true a little bit, and you could, feel different things, but then it's like, where's the fun in it, and then I started a couple years, about 5 years ago, I went out and studied with the Boulder Movement Collective, it was at the time, and that's a Ido Portal group, and the movement culture is a thing now too, and it's this little subculture of physical culture, and but I still, after 5 years of that, I still feel like there's a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? Theatrics, that you know what I mean? And it's undo like this dick measuring contest, you know what I mean? And like I was never really good at sports because I didn't really care who won. I was just having fun.
Yeah, the competition aspect is kind of important.
Yeah.
When it comes to
everybody calm down. It's just soccer.
Right.
It's a big game, but it's like play just for the sake of play is one of the things, and it's like I feel like it gets drastically under prioritized, because it's like we as human beings, we're still an animal. There's our instinctual sides,
sure.
and to ignore those and just continuously dump stuff into boxes and put it like, oh well, this is this and that is that, and this is yoga and that is weightlifting,
right?
I feel like you miss the big picture, the mosaic, the opportunity to build your own mosaic, because you are confined to a discipline,
Right, that makes sense. And I think that what you said earlier about like not questioning, right? When we follow things so stringently, like this is how you do this martial art, or this is how you do play this soccer game, or these are the rules. It is really confining, and I don't think that it leaves any room for creativity. And it doesn't leave any room for exploration. So what part of you, and I know I'm just going like level 4 of my questions here, but like what part of you gave yourself permission to beat to a different drum? Because traditionally, at least how I was raised, and I'm sure that you were raised at the same time, where it was just like infused in us that if that's what everyone else is doing, like they're all walking this way, you got to be walking that way. So what part of you, was there somebody or a situation that happened that you just decided like, I don't actually have to color on these lines?
Yeah, I mean, it probably just started trying to piss my dad off, but it's funny how things come around full circle. Like it was like there's this thing, and it goes way back, like back before punk rock and all of this stuff. And there's like this bohemian thing that just goes through, and when the lines of bullshit are so thick, you know what I mean? Like then that's when the mindset comes back in, like, hey, maybe we can do it a different way.
Right.
And I feel like that could be beneficial, in culture, but also in physical practice. For me, is what it translates to. But like I said, it probably started just trying to piss it. That was it. Ram Dass was like, cops raise hippies and hippies raise cops, or whatever.
I haven't heard that, but that so makes sense.
It's a Ram Dass thing. Yeah. So it's it might have started with that, but it's like there's a line, and you just continuously want to look for your own line, you know. And it's like when you say, when did you give yourself permission to beat to your own drum? I don't know if I ever have. You know what I mean? Like I've never asked permission, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Because if you ask permission, then
Right.
you're already kind of following a rule. You know
Right,
what I mean?
right. But even more so than like asking permission of another, like that writing yourself that permission slip.
Mhm.
And for me, it was just like, this is what everyone else around me is doing. I'm like, I don't want to use red crayon. I'm into purple.
Sure.
And I found that for me, there was that like, I almost had to tell myself like, it's okay if you want that to color that tree purple instead of green. And because no one else around me was saying, oh, purple's a great color, or yeah, you do it. That wasn't happening. In fact, like if we're going back to like childhood, it was like the messages were always, this is how you should do it. You know, even in art class, okay, kids, this is what we're gonna do, how we're gonna do it. Like, such a rainbow, you know? And over time, and it's been a push-pull probably my whole life, that there was, and you know, I'm not trying to put myself onto you, but I don't know, there was, to me, there's a kindred spirit thing here that I've always recognized in you, where I was like, he's just doing things his own way. And no one around you is necessarily like saying, oh yeah, Dan, you can do it differently. So I'm just curious, like, was it a matter of, like you said, just to piss your dad off that that you decided I'm going to do it differently? Is it a matter of that you were inspired? Was it a matter of like, actually I never saw a model, so I became my own model?
I mean, there's all kinds of models. You can look around and find models all over the place. You pick one, you know what I mean? Someone who has, you know, an energy that is attractive to you. But you know, and I don't want to like overstate the dad thing. It's kind of just like to piss everybody off. You know what I mean? Just to like stir it, just to see what happens. You know what I mean?
Antagonist.
That's right. Like,
Yeah.
Because to me, formality, and whether we're talking about psychology or physicality or philosophy or whatever, formality impedes authenticity.
Right.
So like for the example of the coloring as a child, it's like, okay, so this is how you do it. You know, and there's like how many times I could probably make an industry out of you know, put the kids to work. Oh no, the cotton ball belongs here, the cotton ball, you know, like, and design the cotton ball like this, and then it looks like a sew-on, and you're giving them skills to put something out. But that's what education is entirely, is like, this is how you put things out the way that things are supposed to be put out.
Right, which I think was born of the industrial era.
Sure.
To be honest, I mean, yeah, like do it in this cookie cutter fashion. And for me, it was curiosity. I remember like one inspirational example I had when I was growing up was I was invited into a gifted and talented program, and they gave us a shape of a kidney bean on a piece of paper, and they said, you know, decide what you want this to be. Now, prior to that, I was on all art classes that were like, this is how it's supposed to be. And it was just, and I remember that first grade, Mrs. Dunham's class, like I remember, decide how you want it to be. And I was like, oh, hot damn, like, let's see what this could be.
Right.
And then another example was like the following year, second grade, there I am, like raised Roman Catholic. And it was, you know, this is Adam, this is Eve, she screwed up, like, you know, and then doom and gloom. And I raised my hand and I asked, and I remember like I was in the third pew, and I had 2 pigtails in, and I raised my hand and I said, what about the dinosaurs? And none pulled my hair. And it was like, that was one of those like moments when I was like, oh, curiosity isn't necessarily safe, but you mean to tell me nobody else has got questions about this? Oh, well, then I guess I've got to go beat to my own drum.
Yeah, right.
So I think that sometimes it's like we have those moments of inspiration where it's like, hey, you can make this anything you want. And other moments where it's just like, yeah, you guys are all drinking this Kool-Aid and this isn't exactly my flavor. And it's interesting to me, like how many people don't even question it. I'm like, how is that possible? So when you said, it's like you're given all these disciplines, and that's what's contributed to you putting together this mosaic approach to movement into play, is it was born through a lot of questioning, not necessarily doing it exactly as it's supposed to be done.
Yeah. Well, and I, in my heart of hearts, I believe that everybody does question it. I didn't do so well. I was raised Lutheran. This is like half Catholic, and like there's the confirmation and so on. I didn't do so well in that either. I think it was the whale. Like, do you really believe that this fellow? You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
like, are we all gonna agree that this is actually an occurrence, or you know what I mean? Maybe it's just some lore, like,
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Krampus or whatever, and like, I think that everybody has those questions, but that is the thing about the authenticity, is that as you got to be willing to express that, you know what I mean? And but it's like, when you say something, then all of a sudden you're singled out. You're the one saying whatever, and everybody wants to just not be singled out. You know what I mean? And that's a bit like, I've got, Jax is 11, my son is 11. And it's like, boys are kind of like a conglomerate of all the other boys that are around them. You know,
like tribal?
Yeah.
They're trying to be a
Absolutely.
tribe. Sure.
And that's the way. And it goes back to tribal situations. That's why men would have to go hunt and whatever. Why do you think we don't talk so much? Women needed a bunch of words to run a village. You know what I mean? But men didn't need that many words.
That's a good point. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah. Well, it's true. It's a pretty drastic thing of like the average amount of words. I don't know it exactly. You can Google it, I'm sure. But that women use against men. Right.
Even we have 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day is what most research is showing. And interestingly enough, they say men, it's like 35 to 50,000. And which we want to then make a joke about it. But I think that, there's some moments where words are just superfluous.
Yeah.
And then some moments when words are very helpful.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because especially even hunting, you couldn't be chatty. It's gonna scare away the prey.
Yeah. And that's why, like, the nonverbal communication, your men are always so good at it. You can tell. They don't have to say they're angry. You can tell.
Right. Well, it's funny because, and I'm jumping around a little bit, but so in Dan's classes, which I hope that in our show notes that we can put a couple of links to some videos that you've done.
You got a couple.
You have a couple of videos. So people can see and experience. But so one of the things that, and you'll have to help interpret what I'm trying to say, is like back and forth a volley with either like a bouncing of a ball or picking up like a soccer ball. And Dan has taught me so much, and I think I'm barely skimmed the surface, particularly about relationship. And there's been times when, and there's been times when you're not verbally communicating with me, and I'm like just trying to almost muscle or wrestle with it or get it right. And and the times when you have verbally communicated to me, it's like clicked. When you've said, that we're in some ways, like, I don't have to force it, or that we're doing it together, or I'm butchering it a little bit, but it's been interesting and enlightening to me in the interplay of us, like we're working together. And while I know that we're working together, sometimes I muscle in it too much. And then you are demonstrating for me, I know I'm butchering the story, sorry guys, but he's demonstrating for me a more dominantly nonverbal way to communicate. And then he gives me some words, but then that makes the nonverbal make more sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, that's essentially like the definition of somatics is, the mind and the body connection. And then this is the way that we can, can express things that are going on in our mind and so on. But we oftentimes ignore our body. And that's the beautiful thing about stuff like Qigong and so on, is that if you believe it, it works. And if you don't believe it, it still works. Because your body has a kind of intelligence as well.
Right.
But she's talking about, like, we play interactive sort of games, so that and just like, for a very simple example, may I see your hand?
Sure.
And a lot of times when we have control over ourselves, right, then we can get our ego wrapped up in it and try and control.
Right.
Always kind of trying to control things. But when we surrender control to our partner, right, and then you have to play the role of good partner, because when the roles switch, then you get it back. But for this instance, I'm going to be the driver and she's going to be the mover. So it's her job to follow my hand wherever it goes, right? And this is just the very simplest of things. But see, then she's doing all of this work in the bit. What if you keep the arm straight? Can you still follow the hand, right? So straighten out the arm. And then look at how tense she is in the back of her shoulder, right? The shoulder doesn't even move, but watch, it does. Keep the arm straight, drop the hand back, 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 right? Pull it forward, right? And she's still got the arm straight. Right? But this way, without her consent, right?
Right.
Her shoulder starts to move more fluid, right? Because she's following and not leading. So when we take the mindset, like, all right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to crush this, I'm going to, whatever. It's like there's usefulness in that mindset, but then you might block out the possibility of other things because of the will to succeed.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't have to succeed. You just have to be. And that's it.
Right.
That's all there is to it. Just be in your skin, in your body, allow it to move. And when we play the interactive games, dribble the ball back and forth, or drop this ball and drop that ball and all of that stuff, there is a spectrum of things, and in fitness and physical culture, so strength and cardio and whatever, and everything is put in these boxes. But there's a neurology, a network of cells, and it's all, and you go into quantum physics, and it's all this cool stuff, and we can control these deeper parts of our anatomy through breath work, through like all of the somatic things, like Qigong and yoga and so on. And that's the like the guru that sits on top of the mountain. It's like he's got it figured out, kind of, because like your enlightenment is great and all, but is it worth it if it's not shared? You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I mean, you and I talked about how, what do we talk about for the podcast? It was like play, movement, and getting beyond the ego. And it's interesting because you're right. It's about the interplay between control and then surrender. And I remember, because I had this inquiry probably about 2 years ago, maybe it was like right before COVID, and then COVID, I like really dug into it, where I think I asked you, like, what's the difference between surrendering and giving up? And we've done a previous podcast episode on it, because surrender for me was just like gut wrenching. It was almost like Braveheart, like tear me limb from limb. Like I would never surrender. It's really, really hard for me to do. And you have helped enlighten me on the joys that can reside in surrender. But it's interesting because even as we're doing the hand thing, and like, I know you and I trust you, there's a part of me, and this is like why I want to jump into a conversation about ego, there's a part of me that wants to get it right. So while I think externally it might look like I'm trying to control, right? But I just so want to get it right. And I don't know if that's like the ego running amok, because getting it right is an identity that feels good for me, or if it's even like the protection of vulnerability, where it's just like, I want to get it right, because if I get it right, then I remain safe, which is also a conversation from the ego.
Yeah. Well, and safety denotes fear. You know what I mean? Use of that word, and like staying safe and so on.
Right.
But I'm here to tell you, from like literal experience, but then also figuratively that that swimming in a river is only difficult when you're trying to resist the flow.
Right.
So yeah, that's maybe I should change my title to professional river swimmer because that's just the way it's got to go, though. You know what I mean? So there's you know, and getting around the ego, like I'm a fully recovered narcissist. So it's like I should probably, you know, write a little ebook on it or something. But your ego is going to continuously identify and you know, feel real good about those attaboys and whatever,
Right,
and then you get this duality between like good and bad experiences. Like, oh, did I do it right? No, and then you get your head wrapped up in it. And then when you get your head wrapped up in it, then it compounds itself and it continues to grow. Oh no, I got it right. And then all of a sudden you're like, I give up. You know, like I'm not going to get this, and that's where you lose the battle.
Right.
Right. It's not doing it for the sake of being the best. That's not important. Being the best at anything is not important. Being the best fighter, having the highest, tightest ass, you know, whatever the goal is. Goals are great, but you know, they don't do shit.
I know. And
goals are great. Like, I got a whole notebook full of them. Right.
Sure,
but the only ones that get done are the ones that have to work on. And the only way they get done is through continuous failure.
Right. And it's hard, I guess the ego, at least in my interpretation, ego struggles with failure.
Totally.
At least my ego deeply struggles with failure.
Yeah.
Even though I know, right, it's that the knowing, I'm like, oh, you have to fail in order to succeed. But it's just like, ooh, I don't like it. Like, I don't like it. It feels uncomfortable in my skin to fail. But at the same point, like, that's how we get closer and closer to our success, our truth, or our goals. So I guess what I'm curious about is, well, we're getting metaphysical here. How does one get beyond the ego, especially like knowing that it's a mind-body game?
And for me, like my Instagram tag is humans in captivity, because you know, for me, it's like you really want to check your ego, then go and look at the ocean yesterday while the nor'easter was blowing in. Right? You think you're powerful still, right? You still like stepping out in nature is a massive thing. It's something that, you know, with this studio has kind of you know, it's like a very personal thing. Like I used to invite students out and whatever, but now like all of my outdoor practice, which is the better part of my practice, is I do for myself at this point. And you know, and it's been a weird shift, because it's like I've been trying to do what I love for a living. And then it's like, it's okay too sometimes, if it's what you love, to just do it because you love it.
Right.
Right. And that was like a really big eye opener. And like talk about like ego suppression, you know, like I've been putting heart and soul into the studio for the last 3 years. First year was first year, you know, second year COVID hit, whatever. We've been really trying to adapt this place. And I took a look around. I said, okay, we got flowers painted in the bathroom and feminine products on the back of the toilet, and we've got literally a framed picture by the door in glass of cartoon butt cheeks, and it says booty magic. You know what I mean? And I'm looking around, it's like people that are you know, and like this is a big ego thing, because I'm very, you know, I'm very proud of my you know, my movement practice, and I like to share it. But you can't sell a tea to somebody who wants coffee. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like, and you know, they ask for coffee and you give them tea and say, oh, but this is so much more complex and whatever. It's like they don't give a shit.
Right,
you know?
and you've lost them.
Yeah, so you gotta, and then you gotta just like peel. I mean, a massive ego peel. You know what I mean? Because the ego is always going to go to the higher level.
Right.
It's going to identify with your new enlightenment. So what is, you know, it's going to be like, oh, okay, no. And the you know, the whole enlightenment game is just the same thing as the old game. is the same thing you wanted when you wanted a martini or whatever.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, the next thing, the one up, whatever.
Right.
And that when you can step outside of that game and realize that your purpose is not to be the best. It's just to enjoy your life and lift others.
Right.
You know, so
Right.
that's where the play thing comes in, because it's like I have so much fun just playing and lifting others up. You know, and we began, you know, with Bailey, like there's always, it doesn't matter if you can stand up and walk to the refrigerator, you can work out. You know what I mean?
Right.
You can do something, and the more impossible feats you collect. Like I remember when we started with the footy thing, it's, you know, like a soccer skills progression or whatever, and it was, you know, I mean, this.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't get the
I
bit.
was like Bigfoot. I was like
Yeah.
just slamming the thing down. Nothing was happening. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I'm getting too into it. But then, you know, like we built a relationship between the two of us. She said, okay, I can trust this guy. He's not judging me.
Right.
You know what I mean? And we're going to stick with it. And then all of a sudden we started getting the top touch, and then you started getting the bottom touch and all of that stuff.
Right.
And, you know, and then, but then you're like, we're building a relationship, but the ball, like the object manipulation, that's something that not only humans do. You know, like snow monkeys make snowballs and throw them down the pit, and you know what I mean? Like object manipulation is not a strictly human thing.
It's not exclusive to us.
Yeah.
Sure.
And play is, I mean, like animals play, kittens play. It's literally how, you know, and humans too. It's like how we learn about our physicality and how what's possible with it is through interactive play.
Right.
You know.
Right. But where does that get lost, Dan? Like that's the part. Like, I mean, a lot of my clients are super high achievers, and like they need that goal, and it's like, okay, I'm going to do this marathon, so I have to train and X, Y, and Z, and like I'll make the case for play. In fact, I had one client who, this is a couple of years ago, for his birthday, I sent him like a bunch of water guns. I was like, you need to have fun. You're just, you know, your intensity is becoming a crippling effect on you. And so yeah, I sent a bunch of water guns for his like summertime birthday, and it was the best. But what gets us out of play? I mean, obviously, like it's part of us being a mammal, and we exhibit this in childhood. I mean, I see it shifting with people leaning on technology too much, especially with kids just being in the tech zone. But what is it that like now we only either choose movement for, like you said, that, you know, the high and tight ass, or the losing the weight, or crushing the marathon?
Well, that's the like the do this to get that situation. Like everything is do this to get that.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
What do you do just for the joy of it?
Right.
I mean, even like yoga, it's like, oh, I go to yoga so that I can get my zen, so that I can deal with my children, or with you know, with my coworkers or whatever.
Right.
And it's all of this, do this to get that thing, and that's where, you know, like it's the tagline of the studio, that movement is a privilege and not a chore.
Yes.
So, you know, like we put it on our list. It goes on our list. Get our exercise, get our run in. You know, and then, you know, I've also got to go by the hardware store or whatever, you know what I mean? And it goes on the list like that.
Sure.
Yeah. And that's I think the exact point where the spontaneity starts to exit. You know what I mean? It's when it's something like, you know, I don't have walk the dog on the list because I know I'm gonna do it because I love walking the dog.
Right.
You know,
Right.
And I like just being out there.
Execution.
Right.
Yeah.
You do it just to do it.
Right. But for me at least, and I've been guilty of this plenty of times, but I feel like that has me creating a utilitarian relationship with myself. That my pure existence is to accomplish X, Y, and Z task. And when I'm in that mode, I have 0% play in my recipe. And it's like, it's clear, and also affects like my mood or my creativity or my attention or definitely my ego, because when I'm in that utilitarian capacity, robot version of me, it where I'm finding my sense of self is coming from that task that I got to check off the list.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, how do we integrate play more and remember, or even having those warning signs of like, hey, warning, warning, you're being a robot.
Mm-hmm.
You're, stepping outside of yourself. You need to get back connected to yourself. And how do we heed those warning signs? What do the warning signs look like? And how do we get back in touch with that innate sense of play that reminds us of who we are?
Yeah, I mean, that's a solid question line there. The how. It's like brushing your teeth.
Mm-hmm.
You don't go in and brush the shit out of your teeth once a week. You know what I mean?
Right.
You do it every day, a couple times a day, and and that's the way. It's like you gotta get outside of the thing, but you gotta stop being so concerned with the outcome. Right. And that's the the present moment, the mindfulness, and in the present moment, like, yes, I can do things and put myself in steps to get this, for the example, to get this pull up or whatever, right? To get this physical feat, I can do the steps to get there, to run this marathon, whatever. I've got this schedule to do whatever.
Sure.
And being so concerned with the outcome that you don't enjoy that moment. Now I can have fun doing push-ups. You know what I mean? Like, I can have fun. How to unlock that? You come play with me, and I'll show you.
Yeah, it's true.
I'll show you. But it's the outcome. It's like, what do you want out of this? I want to spend time in this present moment. There's a mindful thing when I'm juggling a soccer ball. I'm practicing my juggling, and it's in like the Tao Te Ching, they call it the Wu Wei, where like the action without action. It's just being part of what's happening.
Right, rather than up here strategizing and stressing about what happened before or what you think is going to happen after, but instead just
and the overthinking is a curse. There's a worry. Worry is one of the most pointless things that you could possibly do.
Right.
So if you're worried about your schedule, and getting all your runs in, then it's like you're just creating more energy that is just completely useless. Put that energy into execution instead.
Right.
But there comes your ego, because I say, okay, pick up a tennis ball and dribble it and try and keep your feet in rhythm. And to perform this for 1 minute is your task, right? And when you can do this task, then you get the next task and whatever. And it's like you can't even focus for 5 minutes. You know what I mean? We talk about all of this focus. So, I can focus. I'm very focused. I'm very driven. I'm very focused. And I think, and I've got this plan and I've got this line. But can you focus on the present moment? And that's where, like the object manipulation, the balancing, and so on. And then at first it's like with the soccer ball. We'll go back to that example. It's like, at first it's like, this is impossible. This is impossible. This is impossible. It's impossible. Wait, let's have a look. Maybe it is possible. Okay, I'm going to try. It still feels pretty impossible. Okay, wait, it's fine. Wait, I just did it.
Right.
I just did it. Okay. Wait, didn't get it. Didn't go. Wait, I just did it again. And I don't know how that applies so much to the life coaching, but it's like everything is kind of that way. To me, you just kind of put it out there, and then you let it come back. And if you never put it out there, then it never comes back.
Right.
You understand? So with the dribbling and so on. It's like, you just got to put it out there. Put on your favorite song. You know what I mean? If you're conscious about it, then which I have a reputation around here. The guy that does handstands and cartwheels like a 7-year-old girl. the grown man on the beach, but
Right.
but it's like I don't know how to unlock it, but you in your physical body, this body is made to move.
Right.
And you see it like people clicking a pen, or constantly doing this. This here is your body begging to move,
Right.
begging to play.
Right.
So it's like if you answer the call a little more often, right? Once a day, play a little bit.
Sure.
Play what? I don't know. Crawl around. Play tag with your kid, but you have to crawl. You know what I mean? Or whatever it is.
Lava.
Kids are great, man. Kids will teach you all about it, but we come at parenthood with this thing like, okay, I need to teach this person. No, you come to parenthood like, all right, what can I learn from these people?
Right. Like,
and they're just getting smarter and smarter, and it's like, yes, we have an effect, but only so much. You know what I mean? We can't. That's our parental ego. Our DNA ego, like, oh yeah, no, they're gonna turn out this way because I did a good job.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Hilarious.
I did it right.
Hilarious.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. When I ran into you in the parking lot, it was like, and this was my morning, right? And that was totally my ego having a conversation of expectation.
Right.
Like it should be this way, and it didn't, turn out this way. So it's a failure, it's a hard time, or it's challenging. It's funny because at the same time, my daughter makes her bed in the morning, and that's like something we're like, okay, we're learning to make our beds, be a steward of our environment. It's also a lot of fun to have the pillow fight as she's making the bed, right? So it's, at least for me, it's the interplay of those moments when we can, integrate play or something that's spontaneous or unexpected into, like, okay, we will make a case for structure and routine, and at the same time, we got to get outside that box. And that's why, when you said, like, come play with me, I second that for everyone who's listening, like, check out dance videos, or, I know you do work in person and virtual.
Yeah.
But that was one of the big things, not only like of being in your classes was great. And like, I can definitely highlight that it was nice to see other people playing too. And they didn't get it right, so I didn't have to get it right. And that was cool. But working with you one-on-one was particularly special because I know how talented that you are in these certain movement things. And then, of course, my achiever comes out and I'm like, okay, then that's the right way to do it. But your coaching and encouragement alongside of me acquiring a skill or just dabbling in something was a game changer, because in many ways you modeled for me a self-acceptance that I wasn't able to give myself. And in many ways, it was like, unless I could do it perfectly the first time, like, okay, that's how you do the pull-up. Okay, that's, and if it wasn't like perfect on that execution, a typical version of me would have been like, yeah, no, I'm not, like, that's either not for me, or like almost like punishing or critical that it didn't happen. It was just like so nice working with you, because you also like taught me things that I didn't even know that I could do. Some of our staff work.
Yeah.
And you gave me a staff, and I was like, I would have never have gone and like bought a staff.
Yeah.
But it's like, now I see it in the corner and I'm like, oh, let me balance the staff, or let me, like, even with the ball in the hand, spinning on your too. I'm like, I don't know why I'm so spitty today. It's raining, I know. With the ball in the hand and like, playing with the ball, it's just the simplest thing. Like, for people who are desk bound, like, this blue handball is a game changer. Having the staff in the corner, it's like you see it and it reminds you of like, oh yeah, I use that to play and I like to play. Oh yeah, I got a couple minutes. I don't need to scroll and numb out and dissociate and not be in my body. I can be in my body. And in many ways, like, it was also, at least for me, a bit of a tamer of the ego, because my ego could have another job by being in play.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
Was amazing.
Well, that's and I'm on broken record level at this point, but it's like I'm by no means the best at any of it. You know what I mean? I do handstands, but have you ever seen Cirque du Soleil? You know what I mean? And I can juggle, but have you ever seen Cirque du Soleil? And you know, like I can run a pretty quick 5K, but I'm not getting anywhere close to a half marathon. I see how many leaves I can jump up and touch, you know, along the way. But yeah, no, you take time and just be interested in yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just being interested in your own self and what is possible. And it doesn't matter if you're 75 years old. And see, that's funny how it comes full circle, because like my dad is like 75 years old.
Right.
And now, you know, like over years and years and, you know, whatever, now we have a common ground on movement. And because he said to me one day several years ago, he's like, my shoulders just hit, and I'm like, oh, you just go wipe the wall. And he's like, what do you mean wipe the wall? So, you know, share a thing with them, and then it works.
Right.
He's like, oh, my hips are hurting. And I'm like, well, all you do is walk in a straight line. So, you know what I mean? Instead of walking in a straight line, just start walking sideways and backwards a little bit, and all of a sudden his hips are fine. You know what I mean? So now he's got his little routine, and he's wrapped in the ego part about it, because he has a reputation. You know, he loves it. He loves it. And it's amazing. But he'll have, gym bros just be like, hey man, getting it. 75. But he's getting it. I mean, he's 75 years old, and he can get up and down off the ground real easy and whatever, you know. That's awesome. But I mean, talk about like if my father can play, then you can play. I'm here to tell you, if that you know, the creativity and so on, and you know, I go in, like I've been studying the, you know, like Qigong and Tai Chi a lot over the last year, like daily to some extent. And I had studied it before, but I just wanted to learn how to punch harder at the time. But you know, coming back and looking at it as a healing modality, as a means to do it. And I don't know if you're here like doing the shadow work and all of that stuff. It's like it all can be done in movement. You know what I mean? Like it is therapy. It's a physical expression of yourself, and you're made to express things, you know, and no matter how old you are, you can absolutely begin on something. I'm working really hard right now to get because I only teach so much here, and I do mostly private stuff anymore, and I'm working really hard to get a translation of the programming that I've been doing for so many years over to we got like the VHX that you can get on the online or whatever. But it's mostly, you know, ladies fitness facility stuff, and I've got a couple on there now. But I want to do it, and for many years, like, you pay attention to nature, you follow the signs of it, you do that bit, and it seems to be working for me. I'm doing all right. I can do more now at 42 than I could at 22. So, you know, we're getting somewhere. You know, at 22, I thought I was good. Now, I'm just getting better. But
you just get started.
But it's like you jump in the river and you go for a swim. So that comes on the annual thing. In the spring, things are getting stronger to endure the summer. And then in the fall, you know, things like kind of firm themselves up to endure the winter. And there's this whole thing, and Chinese medicine, you just look into it. There's all kinds of ancient texts on paying attention to this cycle. But if you have, say, a different task for each season, right? And this is the way the thing is going. So each season in the spring, nature gets stronger. So you work on your strength more, right? Your strength and mobility. And then in the summer, You focus more on your bit, and never to the complete exclusion of other work, but then you can stop being bored with it, and it can stop being a chore.
Right.
And instead of being a chore, it's a privilege. It's what you look forward to doing. You know, I've got a nasty little habit now of waking up at 5 in the morning and doing Tai Chi because it feels good.
Right.
You know,
right.
and I think that that's just a great criteria of, if we're talking about nutrition, talking about movement or fitness or whatever you want to call it, talking about the way you carry yourself. It's like, one, you shouldn't do what you want all the time, because you're going to want 1,000 different things. How many? 50,000 things or whatever. You're going to want all of these things. Like, I want to go take a nap right now, you know what I mean? Or whatever. Like, you're going to want all these things. And that's where consistency comes into play. And it's so very important. It's like, no matter how I feel, I get up in the morning.
Right.
You know what I mean? No matter, I feel like shit, I feel great, whatever, you just do it.
Right. Like you said, you don't just brush your teeth really hard one day.
Right.
You've got to do it every day.
Yeah. And then only then can you really get an assessment of the value.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It's like we can, we can be like, oh yeah, no, I played beach volleyball once on the beach with some friends. It didn't go well, and I've never done it again, but I tried it.
Right.
Did you try it?
Right.
Right. All right. Yeah, got to keep digging. But that's the point for me when it comes to crushing the ego, achieving any physical feat, whatever it is. It's like, you just got to continue.
Right.
And the fear point comes, and when you get past the fear point, and I don't know how much breath work you do with holds and all of that stuff, or swimming out in the water, and there's like a point of fear when you're holding your breath, and that point comes just in different sort of languages, but it comes with your social interaction and so on. Like, oh, I don't want to be singled out.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And all of that, the ego stuff, and it all, it's all just going with the flow. Like, if you knew how little you have to do to achieve, happiness and all of that stuff, then you wouldn't try so hard.
Right. But instead, like, gravitate toward the things that inspire you or remind you that you're alive.
Yeah.
Rather than what you have created this narrative of expectation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You're so awesome. See, now you guys know why I created a podcast, just so that I could get Dan Althoff on here.
Finally.
All right. So where can I find you on the World Wide Web? I know we're gonna put all the links and stuff in the notes and the.
Sure. Yeah. No, there's a .com for the fitness studio, OBX Fitness Collective, all one word, .com, and then there's an Instagram and a Facebook for it too, and then my own personal bit is the Instagram, the Humans in Captivity, and I think that one probably suits the best for the thing. But then we also have a VHX, which is something that you can get at your home, and you can practice with us, and that's what I was talking about with the translation. I'm working hard. I've got videos. My father was a perfectionist, so I want it to look good. You know what I mean? That's part of designing the mosaic, though. It's not forgetting the lay that puts you where you are.
There's a truth to that.
Yeah.
All right, my friend.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay. See, guys, now you're gonna love Dan as much as I do.